After finishing the last life email, I ventured down to my dungeon and recorded more backlogged life updates. May the life updates be stacked upon one another until they reach the heavens. And then I called William and got to meet Charlotte for the first time. Interesting meeting someone's girlfriend over Messenger, but nevertheless, it was good. I pulled out my Jungian psychology knowledge. She's definitely an ENFP, by the way, not an ENFJ. And was basically like, you and William might have encountered the following difficulties. And at least according to William, she was impressed by my quote-unquote seer abilities. And to be fair, if you don't know Jungian stuff, I guess it really could seem like I'm just divinating your information. So upon reflection, I guess they are kind of miscally. After we wrapped up that call, I just went to sleep. The following morn, I worked on my this is and such as paper, did Funime, read some more of my metaphysics book, journeyed spontaneously with Noah, Bench, and Grace to get deep-fried Oreos from beyond the border. Those deep fryers are definitely better than Fact Shacks. And then I went to Joann's and bought fabric for our kilts. It's gonna happen. It may take a while, but it's gonna happen. Also, Bench got his fabric for like $17 or something stupidly cheap, so that was just unjust. I actually don't understand what their sale policy was. It was as if they had like some mystical, how much is this item on sale generator, because the price was not clearly indicated in any fashion ahead of time. Here's a picture of us getting our fabric. After that, Noah just dropped Ben back off at his house, and then drove me and Grace back home. And upon returning to such abode, I backlogged more live emails. And then I spent time getting those all online, which is actually a fairly time-consuming endeavor. I then called with William, had a meta conversation about him and Charlotte's relationship. Also, and far more interestingly, he made me aware of his new meta view. The meta view is basically a skill whereby one sees all in philosophy. And looking back to my life dates, I just got to where I turned 19, and it seems like William got the meta view at the same time as me, which is very interesting. I wonder if it's just like an ENTJ thing, or if something has to do with your philosophical level of education. I don't know. But yeah, got excited with him because, getting the meta view was actually pretty exciting. And not many people get it. I then did philosophy. Did Funime. Went on a walk, listened to Personality Hacker, got back, did more backlog recording, and then slept. The following day was big fasting because Chemo was rearing its ugly head and intimidating me from a temporal distance. But I wasn't too hungry, so as to not focus that morning, so I was able to start my day off with some good old philosophy reading. After recording more backlogged emails, I then invited Braden over, and we played some Smash Bros. Together in the apartment. I also started playing a Zelda game on his Switch, but I got bored. Once he left, I then recorded more backlogs intermittently until bed, and then I also take a bath and watch some anime as well before sleeping. Finally, I arose, and Morgan picked me up for Chemo. She was an excellent Chemo buddy overall, I must say. Good with the conversations, but also good just letting me zone out and feel bad when I felt bad. I felt uniquely bad during this round of Chemo, but surprisingly not that bad afterwards, so I don't know what's up with that. Once I got home, I watched some anime, took a shower, then Grace brought her friends Adele and Emerson over, and I got talking about Jungian psychology as well as spiral dynamics, and that served as a great distraction until around 10 or so. Adele, I suspect, is an INTP, and I was super interested that she was interested, so I deeply enjoyed her. Saturday, I was hungry and nauseous. A strange combo, I assure you. I did some Jungian research, looked into what it would take to finally paint my car matte black, because how cool would that be? Watched some anime, and then finally finished Naruto. Oh my gosh. That anime was death. Jeremy, I'm never taking your recommendations again. Man, I watched over 140 episodes of that anime. 140! That's ludicrous. And that was skipping 80 episodes of filler. So not worth it. But I pushed through and I finished. You all should be so proud of me. After that, I started an anime with Grace, and oh boy, this is an anime. See, it's one of those classic, everyone says it's good animes, and of course it's a romance, but I'm a reformed and refined man these days, so the fact that this romance wasn't horribly off-putting. Nevertheless, nothing can prepare me for the embodiment of pure FI essence that this anime presents. It's like the main protagonist, guarantee INFP, was created by extracting the tears of 100 FI DOMs over 3 years, and letting them ferment for another 10 years or so. If I had $1 for every time the main character talked about how she was feeling, I think I would have $100 right now. No joke. So for me, with FI Inferior, it's just super painful. But Grace, with FI Auxiliary, she'll join me on the Maki, but then I guarantee you she 100% secretly loves it. Hence, because of my stupid, finish the anime you start, unless there's sketch policy, we continue to press on. After watching some of that anime with Grace, I then ate food, took a nap, cause Chemo, and mustered the strength to go bowling with the Macy's. I also did quite well, though one of my spares was given to me by Mom, who bowled my absence since, Grace, Ellie, and I were getting drinks. But here's the scoreboard. I think I might be getting good at bowling because now, I've been constantly cresting 120. So maybe I've just hit my groove or something. I got 158 on that bowling round. Regardless of my bowling skill, I felt pretty blah the whole time, but nevertheless, it was good. We then walked around over to Chick-fil-A where one of my engineering classmates was there, and he made a solid 3 seconds of eye contact with me. And see, mostly Monty, was probably the classmate I was close to before. I had to dip out of engineering classes, so our relationship was in this awkward realm of, do I just nod or do I talk to him kind of realm? Because we were good. We were good friends before I left. But anyway, I decided to just nod, and I think that was the right call. He was with a bunch of his friends, too. So yeah, we ate the food, said goodbye to the Macy's, and then that night, I called and caught up with Jordan before going to sleep. Sunday, I was already feeling mostly better, so that was good. The core friend group was absent, thus I spent church socializing with people I hadn't caught up with in a while. And then I talked with Abel and Jesse for a bit before people returned. And I was regaled with the tales of their adventure, which, since the point was it was not an adventure, were not very exciting tales. But they were good to hear nonetheless. Thereafter, I attended D&D, but I was big sleepy because the damn steroids be that way. So as soon as D&D ended, I went home, took a nap, and upon awakening, I ate some great spaghetti. Apparently, I did that. I actually don't remember that, but it's in my notes, so it's noteworthy. Literally. So it must be true. I then did Fanime, went over to Neo and Alan's, where we had a pretty good talk, as well as many a popsicle. I also taught Alan some Jungian stuff, namely the 4 perceiving functions, before I went home. Unfortunately, I did not get much sleep that night because of those steroids, so I woke up big early, read philosophy, did life doing stuff, and then napped. I then did some social scheming and found out that I did not get the Shimmer job, which was big sad. See, I would have at least liked the chance to interview before they canceled me out, but apparently my medical complications, weren't their problem, so fair enough. Still, it would have been cool to have, all the expenses trip paid to California trip. Thereafter, Monday night ensued, wherein we ate food and spread butter. I was taught by both the real and the fake Karina in the act of butter spreading. And then went thrift store shopping, and I almost danced in public. Oh, you have to understand that's actually so hard for me. Like there's a self-esteem wall just chilling between my brain and motor functions. Anyway, also bought a good-looking shirt thing and some shoes, which I will wait to wear until my hotness debut. After that, we did some improv sketches at the Myers basement, and it was okay. Then we spent the rest of the night looking at MBTI memes, and those were fire! Oh my gosh, I love MBTI memes. Both Benj and Grace had some really good ones, but unfortunately, Joe, Johannes, and Karina's were all pretty lackluster. I shall include but a few of the memes from this time. My favorite ENTJ meme from that time, as well, I will include. It's actually so true. Anyway, that was a big fun, and that's how I rounded out the night. The next morning, I woke and ate Wendy's for breakfast, because why not? I then did philosophy, took a nap, and then, upon waking, talked with Ben until ratio. At ratio, Alan and I whiteboard fought, which we didn't actually fix anything, but he made me have a big brain thought, so it was worth it. Here is the picture. Yeah, we actually need to get better markers, because, man, that just kills me. Once I got back home, I watched an anime episode with Grace, and then hit the sack. Once again, steroids did not let me sleep, so I woke up at 6, big sad, and proceeded to just lie in bed listening to Jake's Life of Daniel narration, which was great. I then did some philosophy reading while eating salt and vinegar chips, took a 3-hour nap, walked to Wendy's while listening to Personality Hacker, got some good work done on my this and such this paper, and then Noah joined me for like an hour while I worked on that. Thereafter, nothing much happened, as Noah and Melissa, deep voice Noah, before with other Noah, were 45 minutes late to dinner, but once they got here, it was a good amount of socializing. Noah gave me wooden katanas as a late birthday gift, so those were fun, but mostly it was just interesting to hear what they were up to. Thereafter, I had classes, as well as a sociology exam, but I actually hit the submit button before I reviewed my answers, so we'll see how well I did on that. Also, on a completely unrelated note, Mom and Dad got me this as a late birthday present. It's a mug with my insignia, so that was pretty sweet. Oh, now, the big thing that happened. See, a while back, I decided to be worth it, and I ordered a full genome sequencing to basically figure out all the things that my genetic stats say. And now the results have finally come back. And honestly, pretty crazy all the stuff they can tell about you because of your genes. Like, they knew about my eye floaters. Those things I got that have gotten way worse, by the way. Yeah, apparently they're called cardiacs, and I'm genetically supposed to get them. Also, my genetics are pretty garbage in general, but it turns out my physical stats are all pretty darn great. I've apparently got a rare genetic thing for fast twitch muscles, which is why I can run so fast. Also, the other really good stats are my mental stats. Kind of crazy they can tell I'm a probable workaholic from my genetics. I thought it was very interesting. Also, reading through it just says you have dominant TE. So I feel a little hated on for making that a negative trait. The warrior versus warrior, that sounds like the same thing. The warrior, rawr warrior, versus warrior, oh no, we're all gonna die, warrior, was quite interesting too. Apparently, I have a higher pain threshold, and my performance actually goes up when I'm under pressure. Though, I might tend to make rash decisions instead of thinking things through all the way. Unlike the warrior. But, on the other hand, the warrior trait is also linked to having, the warrior trait is also linked to having mental health issues, so I think I'd rather make rash decisions. Thank you very much. Finally, last area that was genetically exceptional was my memory. So that's very interesting, and it would explain how I'm able to keep all this info in my head, like I do. I mean, for me, it's just normal. It seems weird you guys can't do that, but, what can I say? I'm special like that. The other significant results were, I need more sleep than most people. I have a genetic disposition toward type 2 diabetes. I have a fairly helpful list of genetically disposed vitamin deficiencies I'm likely to be deficient in and how to fix them. I'll start doing that as soon as I finish chemo. It turns out I have a rare genetic thing where sugar makes me extra fat. Yay. And intermittent fasting and other forms of yo-yo fasting actually backfires for me. Anytime where I cut calories like cold turkey and then eat, yeah, that actually doesn't work for me. My immune system is decent. I'm super sensitive to caffeine, but we already knew that. I sunburn really easy, and I'm going to be so wrinkly as an old guy. Also, I have a rare sensitivity thing that may explain my childhood hate for paper. All very interesting. At some point, I'll also be getting my epigenetic results back, so I'm looking forward to what they'll tell me, especially since, epigenetics you can actually affect. Also, the really cool thing is that the gap... Oh, the app actually links you to all the peer-reviewed studies that show you the correlation between the genes and the characteristics. Anyway, I'm quite happy I did this. I'll be making some significant lifestyle changes as soon as chemo is over based on the data, and if you're interested in doing it too, it's called Toolbox Genetics, or Genomics. It's a genome sequencing test that was like the best according to my research, but if you find out one that's better, let me know. So yeah, not going to lie, I was a little bit distracted in my class because I was busy looking over my genetic data. Once I got home, I read some philosophy, went out for a whiskey still burger with Dad and talked. Got back, synthesized all my genetic results as well as made a list of foods I need to incorporate in my diet to fix my deficiencies, and then went over to CSU for philosophy class. And herein marks another notable event, namely that upon discussion, this was the last philosophy class in the foreseeable future. Not going to say I won't start it up again, but it was decided, mostly due to Joe's waning interest, that I had taught them a sufficient amount for now and should resume my teaching once I've solved metaphysics. Hence, philosophy class has run its course, and honestly, I think that's all good. I can certainly see how, like, Noah, Neo, and Joe have all leveled up, so I'll grant that the content I was about to teach them was a little more less practical. So yeah, a good deed was done, philosophy was taught, and my disciples have been set free upon the world. I hope they do good with the knowledge they've been given. After class, we got Wendy's and talked, and also listened to part of the Personality Hacker podcast that I didn't get to about ISTJ loops. Honestly, it was spot on as regards Joe's behavior. And yeah, other than that, we just talked until midnight. Grace joined in for a bit on Joe and I's conversation while Noah and Neo talked about some other thing. It was something, I don't know what it was. And yeah, that was the night. Upon the morrow, I got some good work upon my This Is Such This paper done. Ate noodles while watching anime, did some philosophy reading, did some backlog life beat recording, and then was cut short as my back started really hurting for no exclusive reason. I took a bath while watching cancer videos trying to remedy the situation, but the help was marginal. So instead, I recruited Mom to bestow upon me a massage with the massage gun, and that actually helped a lot. Moms are great. Then from there, I shared my genetic results with Ben. I bet he's got the same fast twitch muscle thing that I do, because he's almost as fast as me. And then I went over to Noah's house for their guys' night. As can be seen, Noah, Ratio Noah, got a lot of different beers, and we did beer tasting of sorts. My conclusion? Beer tastes bad. Like, there were a few that were perhaps tolerable, but none that were any good. Like, the only thing that kind of tasted good was the mead, which I did appreciate. But, yeah, I'll probably had, like, one beer in total, so not a lot of alcohol. Most of the time was actually spent competing with people axe throwing, because let's be honest, that's much more fun. Axe throwing is great. Sean beat me once, but I won the other 3 rounds that I played. I like axe throwing. It's such an easy activity to establish, too. Like, all it takes is a one-time purchase of axes, and then, like, a board. There should be more axe throwing in the world. And yeah, once it got dark, everyone went inside to watch The Predator. But I was like, yeah, I'll pass. And so I went home instead. Once I got home, I worked on recording backlog live demos until bed, at which point I cracked a few letters and slept. Next morning, I woke up nervous as today was Emotional Expression Day. As all of us dominant thinkers know, emotions are devil dragons. The plan was to cry in public while we were watching the best anime of all time, Violet Evergarden. However, that plan was only mostly achieved. My eyes got big watery, but a tear did not fall. Probably because every time I got close, I would realize it and I'd be like, wait, am I about to cry? And then I'd lose it. Anyway, regardless if I actually cried, I was definitely emotional in public and I vicariously showed vulnerability to those close to me. So I still call it a win. But regardless, I got really nervous, and while Violet Evergarden Watch Party was still like a few hours out, I worked some of this live email, but then once we got within like an hour or so, like I was too nervous to even do that. Not gonna lie, it's funny how the 2 things that have made me seriously nervous as of late are impending death and emotional expression. I'm pretty confident those shouldn't be on par, but they're actually pretty close. Anywho, the Violet Evergarden Watch Party got underway, and the number of viewers dwindled as time went on, but nevertheless, it was watched, and man, this was my 6th time watching the show, but it's actually so good. Aside from just like the quality, I just appreciate that everyone showed up though. It was surprisingly emotionally impactful. So yeah, very glad I did that. After the watch party, Johanna and I visited Grace at her dog sitting gig at the same place that I dog sat, and they're never having her again. And then we walked over to Ben's house and chilled there while we waited for David and Sam, my second cousins, to arrive. Once they did, Grace and Johanna headed out. Then Ben, Caleb, me, Sam, and David all drank the alcohol and played Catan and this get to know each other game. Here's a picture. The Catan part was fun, but the get to know each other game was less so. All the responses were sarcastic, and man, there's just some questionable jokes. Don't get me wrong, it was good to see David and Sam again, but I forgot how like healthy and epic my friend groups are until I'm reminded of normal people. So yeah, that was an experience, but still glad I did it. Also, I didn't get affected by the alcohol in any significant way this time. However, the next day, my fingers did tingle. And, you know, now that I think about it, that happened when I drank alcohol at the cabin too. So I did a bit of research, and apparently there's this thing called alcohol-induced neuropathy. And it seems like I have it. I don't know, because maybe I'm on chemo or something, but anyway, if it keeps happening, it can be permanent. So, hopefully, that means I have a good excuse to not drink alcohol without ruining the social vibe. That'd be very helpful, but we'll see. So, yeah, did that until about 12. After that, I slept. Upon rising, I went to church, did something different. Instead of typical socializing, this time I got to know Peter and investigated his FI conundrums, which was very interesting. There's a lot more nuance in an FI Dom's self-understanding, and it was actually pretty fun to explore. However, later, as the lunch bunch happened, I did engage in some normal socializing, and that was decent. Seth and Beth's little brother did this little thing that makes about as much sense as it looks like. I love how it looks like Peter's just crying, but to be sure, I think he's actually thinking. After lunch, from lunch. I stopped by home and did something mostly trivial, I can't remember what, before going to Neo and Cindy's house where we carpooled over the senior center for the Jewish festival thing. However, upon arriving, it was mega jank / boring, so I decided to leave and walk home. Upon getting home, I recorded life and did backlogs. I did food and then I drove around with Grace till like 6:30 to 11. And that was quite the interesting experience. Here's a picture of me riding in the back of her car as the roads got snowy. Basically, how this whole event happened is Grace came to me and she was like, I'm bored. You want to go driving? And I was like, yeah, why not? So I then proceeded to invite all my friends, and she said invite all of her friends, and only one person out of both of our friends combined said yes. Adele, the INTP girl that Grace knows. Hence, we journeyed to Adele's house to pick her up, only for Grace's check engine light to come on. And so we went all the way back to my house, only to find out her check engine light came on was for trivial reasons. So we journeyed all the way back to Adele's house to pick her up. And of course, this whole car ride was spent singing along to good music, so it wasn't really a waste. Well, anyway, as we're driving to pick up Adele, Grace asked Adele if she could invite Rowan, who's basically Grace's like frenemy, and it turns out he's an ISTJ, the natural bane of the ENFP. And Adele was like, sure. So Grace did that, and to her surprise, he agreed to join us. Hence, after picking up Adele and listening to some good old classics, we then picked up Rowan and headed toward the mountains. However, Rowan was quite vocal about his distrust of Grace's driving during the present conditions, which admittedly were getting kind of bad. So after we got to the reservoir, we ended up just turning around because it was a bit sketchy. Yet, before we did that, we rolled down all the windows with the blizzarding snow, and I played this instrumental song called Zoltrak on full blast, and it was great. Probably my favorite part of the whole drive. Once we got back in town, Rowan chilled out some, and then we just drove back to Adele's place and sat in her massive house eating homemade chocolate chip cookies that her sister made that were quite good, and talking about Jungian psychology. Last time we talked about Jungian stuff, Adele was super enthusiastic, but this time she was much more subdued, and I suspect that's because Rowan was pretty vocal against the whole thing. He apparently used to use personality things in the past, and it brought about bad outcomes, so now, of course, because ISTJ, the lesson is ingrained as immutable within his mind. See, this is the blessing and the curse of the SI types. It's like they never make the same mistake twice, which is great, but they also like fail to reevaluate their past judgments and see if that's the cause of the mistake. They're just like, nope, my past interpretation is true, full stop, and this vexes me. But regardless, I have stronger TE than Rowan, so I've still won the argument. Being TE Dom is great. And once we headed home, he became much more agreeable and sang along with Grace and I. Also, man, can that man sing. I think he even outclasses Johanna and Karina. We should put them in the singing competition. So yeah, it was fun having Adele and Rowan along, but I like them more separately than I do together. That's my verdict. The next day, I worked on my This Is Such as paper, read some philosophy, did fan with Grace, read a lot of spiral dynamics, walked and listened to Personality Hacker, then Neo and I left early for Liam's house to talk about how to be a good DM for an hour, though Neo did almost all the actual talking. Then we ate food, played some good old D&D, watched some Blue Lock into the night. The next day was school, and thus I engaged in class. This time around, I had a media journalism exam, so since I skipped quite a few of those classes, I studied for like 30 minutes beforehand, and I got a 72, which is objectively bad, but also objectively the exact class average. And considering I didn't actually know the content prior due to my mini study session, I would say that makes me do pretty well. Once I got home, I mentioned the exam to Grace, and she was like, people like you shouldn't exist, aka people who don't do any hard work but still do fine at school. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. So, sucks to be not me. And, I really feel like we had bonded during that conversation. A deep brother-to-sister bond was formed, and the world just can't come to understand a bond like that. After said bonding, I read more of my metaphysics book, did fan anime, recorded life update backlogs, read some more of my spiral dynamics book, and then Emerson came over, and I decided to join her and Grace for a drive. And it was decent. I don't know. Emerson seemed a bit off, but still overall enjoyable. We mostly just sang, although my voice was pretty dead from the previous 4 hours of singing. And here's a picture. We grabbed Verb cinnamon rolls just before they closed, and then once we got back home, I got the privilege, quote-unquote, of listening to Emerson and Grace rant about their school experience for 2 hours. See, the original goal was for me to try and figure out the cause of their freshman classes like separation, disintegration, but it very quickly just turned into a venting session, which I patiently listened to for way too long. But at least it ended when Emerson, had to leave, so that was nice. After that, I was emotionally exhausted, so I read more of Spiral Dynamics, Crafts and Laggers, and then went to sleep. Friday, I fed my mind with philosophy upon waking, did Funime, recorded life demo backlogs, read Spiral Dynamics stuff, and got some Five Guys, and then did some more Funime, read some more Spiral Dynamics, and I was like, I would like social interaction, and I would like to talk about all the cool stuff I've learned. Hence, the perfect man for the job came to mind. The wedded Voss. So I consulted the wedded Voss about his spontaneous availability, and it was in fact high. So he came over, and I shared the things, and I learned with him, that I've learned with him, and he took me over to his house, where he share some of the things he's been thinking about with me. He gave his reasons for thinking that April is an ISFJ and 7 ESFJ, and those are pretty convincing. And I'm sure he's right about that. As he also gave his reasons for thinking that Sam is an ESFJ and 7 ISFJ, and those are pretty good too. Probably gonna go with those 2 conclusions until I have data suggest otherwise. So yeah, that was productive. Some of the stuff we talked about was less productive, but I became prepared for that, so I still had a good time. Once he took me back home, I went on a good old night walk. I read some more Spell Dynamics, did some more backlog recording, and then rested my head upon a spongy pillow. The next morning, I was fasting for what I can only hope will be the last time. I've actually gotten so good at fasting. When I first started fasting, I couldn't do like anything productive because, I was so hungry it was distracting. But these days, my body's just like, you're hungry, so what? And it's actually quite easy. It's super weird though, because I have like this fasting mode. Like on the Thursdays I'm not fasting, I'll get hungry just like normal. But then on the Thursdays when I know I'm fasting, it's like my body just knows it's a waste of time to tell me I'm hungry. So it just doesn't. I mean, it does. I know I'm hungry, but it's not the same. It's like I'm not really hungry when I'm fasting, unlike the other times when I'm hungry. Anyway, that's all I have to say. A well-curated 3-day fasting mode has been embodied into me, and I sincerely hope I'll never have to use it again. So yeah, once classes were over, I read some more Spell Dynamics, learning a lot of actually really good stuff. I then went over to Joe's for like 4.5 hours to talk about the past, since I've been reading through all my past life emails, and it's a fresh memory in my mind. Really interesting conversation. Both me and Joe had some significant false memories, which was very interesting. Also, really interesting to see how that data combined with Spell Dynamics to see why things happen the way they did. Overall, very good 3-hour conversation. The only trouble is that left us with an hour and a half to kill, so Joe and I just fought in the Clash of Clans battles while Noah did homework, and I've lost so many times. It was back there. But then Neo arrived after a brief conversation, and the new Thursday night routine then got underway, and we all started playing Diablo 3 together. Honestly, a pretty good game choice in my opinion, as it's, progression-based, but at the same time doesn't require much brain power, as Neo just knows the whole story and can take us wherever we need to go without actually engaging the story. That's handy. So yeah, basically a cooperative RPG, and not bad. We played from about 7:30 to 10:30, and from there I drove home and went to bed. As for yesterday marked what I hope will be the last chemo session for all time. And eternity, we'll have to see. I say hope, because, if the chemo does its job, I'll know in like a month. Now, and then they'll give me my PET scan then. But even then, I won't actually know if I'm done with cancer, because it could come back for another like 2 years. So, all that's quite vexing. And I haven't really felt at liberty to celebrate. So I think I'll hold off until that PET scan results comes back. Assuming that shows the cancer is gone. Then I'll celebrate. Regardless, Johanna was my last chemo buddy, and she did great. Many very interesting conversations, and we had something to talk about until just before the drive home. So she almost made the finish line. I don't think she beat out Alan for best chemo buddy, but I will say she was definitely up there. I feel, I felt pretty decent this chemo time around, actually, so it was a nice way to end it. Once I got home, I was super blessed to see that the Emily Hoffman and the Myers had come over to my house and decorated the whole thing just to celebrate my last chemo round, so that was honestly super great. I mean, I felt like garbage, so my reaction was probably super lackluster, but nevertheless, I definitely love that. Here are some pictures of their handiwork. Boop. So yeah, hopefully this will be the very last time I shall willingly have poison injected into my veins, and cancer can henceforth be behind me. But I'll wait to give that verdict in a month, since, that's when I'll know if it's gone. Well, at least for now. And yeah, other than that, all I did with my day was feel super sucky and watch anime and stuff. And it was a pretty good Friday to be done with chemo. And I look forward to the hope of a normal life once again, and getting absolutely jacked. Until next time.